Hello everyone, welcome to From the Star Wars Home Video Library. I'm your host Nathan P. Butler. This is the first in kind of a string of episodes here, 3 of which I'm recording here on the same day, which are going to be looking at some honest-to-goodness new Star Wars releases here in, the, second quarter, I guess, of 2024. What we're looking at in this episode is an oft-delayed but finally released documentary. This documentary was released, I don't know if it's broadly or just through Target. I got it through Target. It is a print-on-demand type of release, but it is a documentary actually from 2018 that got put on DVD just here recently in 2024. In our next 2 episodes, we will of course be looking at the 2 different US releases per episode of Andor and Obi-Wan, or at least Season 1 of Andor. In the near future, I anticipate episodes on the newest Blu-ray release of Hardware Wars, which is in some people's hands now, should be in everybody's hands, but is constantly being delayed in terms of actual fulfillment by folks like Amazon. So hopefully that will be here in the next week or so. But then we are also going to be looking, of course, at the UK releases of Andor and Obi-Wan, but they aren't released yet. They are not only coming later than the US ones, they are also staggered again, where the 2 releases are on different days. So we're going to be seeing those sometime in the near future. I don't know that we're going to have much in the way of new episodes on other oddball stuff in between. So for now, this string of episodes is really going to focus in on some recent actual new releases, which we haven't been able to say for a while. So, we kick it off with one that, again, I picked up through Target, which is a documentary from 2018 being released on DVD for the first time in 2024. And it's actually in a similar vein to some stuff that we have seen before. We've seen a mixture of documentaries when it comes to documentaries about Star Wars fans. We've seen some that are very critical or deriding, kind of derogatory in their style. We've seen ones that are very uplifting and kind of almost puff pieces for Star Wars fans. We have seen ones about fandom in general. We've seen ones about waiting in line for the Star Wars movies. And we have seen some about the 501st, the costuming group, who not only does the costuming themselves just for fun, but also uses that to do things like big events, parades, and whatnot, and charitable work. One of the biggest parts of it, one of the things that I admire the most about the 501st myself, not being a member, is their charitable work. And we've seen some recent releases in that regard. But one of the more recent ones that we saw was Heart of an Empire. And as I recall, there was a level of almost sort of controversial topics within it, or talking about the controversy within the group, such that it didn't come off as a super positive take. It was positive, but there was certainly an undercurrent of negativity to go with it about some of the turmoil that the group had gone through. What we're looking at this time is also about the 501st, a specific group within the 501st, the UK Garrison, and it's really focusing in primarily on the positive side. There's not a lot of critical stuff in here. It tends to be more of a feel-good documentary, more so than one of those more scathing ones or more hard-hitting, let's get to the controversies type of documentaries. So a nice change of pace, I guess, in that regard, and that is this. This is Heroes of the Empire. And it has a tagline here, witness the love and passion inspired by Star Wars. The actual full name is Heroes of the Empire, The Untold Story of the 501st UK Garrison. But that wouldn't fit in a nice logo there, I suppose. So we got a couple of troopers there. Then we just have essentially the title there with DVD. Then on the back here, we have information about it, which I will go over, because there's not much of it. Some images from it, cast crew type information, your legalese, put out through Dreamscape. The actual team behind it is Speechless Films, but Dreamscape, I guess, being the ones to actually put out the physical media copy. It is 1 DVD. It is 1 hour long. What it says here is, winner of the 2018 Underground Cinema Film Festival. This documentary follows the 501st UK Garrison Star Wars TM Costuming Club. Wait, what? Yes, they have the TM pretty damn big right after the Star Wars there, as opposed to it being small up in the corner, so it's Star Wars TM Costuming Club around the UK as they attend a variety of fundraising events, revealing a side of costuming you've never seen before. From international film premieres to children's hospital visits, witness the impact that UK Garrison, UKG, have on the hearts and minds of the fans they meet, changing the perception of costuming. The film reveals the wide variety of people from many walks of life who are inspired to join the UKG. For these individuals, being heroes of the Empire is their true identity. This is directed by Ross Joseph and Tom Long, produced by Tom Long, and it says starring Jeremy Bulloch. He appears for like a split second in the entire thing, so very much not starring Jeremy Bulloch in any real sense whatsoever. Inside, it is just a pretty plain DVD here. It says, here's the Empire, got the DVD, Dreamscape, doesn't say anything in the little bar underneath, it's just stars. Dreamscape, www.dreamscapeab.com. You got your legalese and stuff going around the corner. Again, 2018 is the copyright date on this. I see no evidence that the actual production ever came out prior to this release as far as like actual physical media, though someone can correct me on that. This was something that was up for pre-order for a while on the Target website before finally coming out here recently. It is, as I mentioned, print on demand. It is a DVD-R, so a very, very, very tiny print run, as you'd probably expect for something in this particular vein here. So, again, lots and lots of notes to try to make sense of everything that I'm seeing. I will say there are no subtitles. It is just English. It does run about an hour. It is dedicated to the memory of Graham Campbell, who was the founder of the UK Garrison. It does also make reference to Albin Johnson, of course, who founded the 501st in general. It focuses in very much on Gary Hales, who is the commanding officer, at least at the time that it was being made. Elaine Smith, the treasurer, is in it. Rob Denahan, or Denahan, if I'm saying that correctly, who dresses as Maul and as a stormtrooper. Ian Wilson, known for his Vader costuming. Jenny Tate, who is the PR officer. Again, I say is, but was at least at the time of this. We see stuff in here also with Karen Angel and Steve Weir. And we do get a nice moment with the family there, Karen and little Luke Armstrong, as he is, having been part of it very early, is gifted with a helmet of his own. So, looking at this, again, it is a fairly positive take. It talks a little bit about the origins of it, but it's very much focused on why do these people do this, and what good do they do with it. You get the sense fairly early on that that's kind of the theme that this is going with, because they frequently make references to various individual events that they do for charity. And then it builds, and then it builds, and then it builds. And most of the focus by the back half is on those charitable works. The things like, you know, hospital visits, even if it's not something to raise money. Hospital visits for the kids and things like that. Kind of the uplifting side of where this can be used to do some good out there. It does have some interesting bits in it that kind of made me sit back and think. Like there's, for instance, a bit spent on the distinction between cosplay and costuming, which is not something I ever really would have considered. I know that usually it's referred to as costuming for things like the 501st, but I don't know that I ever would have drawn that distinction myself, not being part of that community, so I found that pretty interesting. How they do a combination of things like free events and commercial events, where then some of that commercial stuff, they wind up turning that money around and that goes to charity as well. One thing that rang true for me was the idea of Star Wars weddings and the 501st doing Star Wars weddings. I don't know that I ever would have thought about, when we did our wedding, which included Star Wars elements, to actually have 501st involved, even though I'm sure there are plenty of 501st in the Atlanta area. It's just not something that would have come to mind. For us, it was, for those curious, kind of sidebar here, zipping off to the side, we had Star Wars music as our main music. For her walking down the aisle, I took the beginning part of Here Comes the Bride and then the Imperial March and spliced them together so that for a moment it seems like it's the regular, you know, Here Comes the Bride, but then switches to the Imperial March once she actually starts moving down the aisle itself, as opposed to coming in to the aisle. And then instead of a Unity candle, we did the Unity sand thing, where you have the two different colors of sand representing each of you that you pour together and everything, so it makes the little container. But at the bottom of that, before we poured ours in, we had a little bit of sand, thanks to one of the recent, or not recent at the time, thanks to a Star Wars documentary, The Force... So Within Us or Among Us, the first one, where if you pre-ordered it, you got a little vial of sand from one of the shooting locations for Tatooine. Put that inside and then put ours on top of it. So we had Star Wars stuff at our wedding, but I would never have thought about actually asking 501st to take part, because apparently that is a thing that can be done. But a lot of time spent looking at children's hospitals and events, for instance, for the Henry Allen Trust, for example, where The 501st had been involved with the child. The child had passed away, and eventually, aside from continuing on and doing events in his name, actually having 501st members as pallbearers at the funeral. They talk about the Galactic Academy Kids thing. It shows them taking part in the premiere for The Force Awakens, which is pretty cool. It's interesting that some of the insights of things like how, to their mind, it's that essentially Star Wars has never gone away. It's a society has now caught back up, essentially, to Star Wars. And now, all of a sudden, Star Wars is cool again. But Star Wars had never really gone away. And some of these folks talking about how even if there were, if they had to make the choice between, I think this is the way it was worded, something along the lines of like, if there wasn't going to be another film, or if you had to choose between more Star Wars films and continuing to do this and do good works with the costuming, they would choose the good works, not necessarily more films. It is not a terribly long documentary. It's only about an hour. But it's an interesting one. It's cool to see the 501st on the UK side, because usually it's focused on the US side of the 501st. So it's nice to kind of see that different glimpse into it, and something that sort of takes the topic seriously, doesn't mock it, also doesn't get terribly defensive about it like you sometimes see with fan-focused documentaries. There's a little bit, comparing like costuming and the good that it can do versus like, well, you're just going to go fishing, right? The why do you do this? Well, this is a hobby that actually does good versus that, etc. Not a whole lot of that. There does seem to be a little bit of defensiveness against the concept of dress up. But by and large, a very positive documentary that just shows the 501st from a different angle, from a different location. Not a whole lot beyond that really to say about it, though, because it is, like I said, it's a very straightforward and relatively positive documentary. So if you're into the 501st and you've seen some of the other documentaries about it, but you want to see one from a different perspective, or if you're focused on the UK garrison, because maybe you're on that part of the world, then now there is a documentary about your 501st garrison. Again, it is Heroes of the Empire, unfortunately just on DVD, not Blu-ray in 2024, but a decent little watch nonetheless. With that, we'll wrap up this episode. Thank you for watching, and may the Force be with the home video viewers.